Okay, now I should probably mention that it's good to be consistent in the direction that you attach your weaving rows to the side stitches. Like I usually go from the bottom up, and you know, if you wanted to, you could go from the top down, but you just need to be consistent with that, and that makes the overall effect smoother and more uniform. And I also want to mention, because the fabric is a little bit, for lack of a better word, stickier, notice how going through this stitch has pulled this side one tight. So once you've pulled it through, you just need to kind of you can either take your fingers or you can use your needle and just kind of rework the tension there so that you don't have little bulges in on the edge. Okay. And in just a plain weave, it's fairly easy to tell which stitch you need to go into next. On these edges that have the little alternating green and kind of silvery color, you have to, the first time, go through the one color, which is in this case the green, and just be consistent. I think it's easier to go through the little one first, okay, and then pay attention to your weaving pattern. I need to go under that. You can kind of straighten it out. It's okay if it's a little bit twisted, because that's part of the texture that the fabric creates, but you don't want a big wad of a knot there. Okay. And this time it didn't pull through real badly. Tighten it down. Go back. And I went through the green one. Now I'm going to pick the silvery one and repeat the pattern. If you don't go through both of those colors, you're going to end up rising too quickly on this side, and so it'll kind of turn into a diagonal. Okay, so that's the texture that the fabric creates, and I'll go ahead and continue this up to the edge of this, and I'll do the same thing on the other side, and then I'll trim these little ends so we can see how things are looking so far. Okay, so both sides of the fabric weaving are complete, and now that I have pretty much finished this section, I'm going to go ahead and trim some of these ends. I leave them long while I'm working so that I can see which areas I have actually pulled yarn through, so that I don't pull them through all in the same place. Just helps me to keep track of my process. I'll probably go ahead and just leave those for now. This is the bottom row of weft that I actually took the needle, threaded it through, and pulled it up through there. So which just kind of protects that bottom layer of weft. And this needs trim just a little bit closer. You really want to be careful that you don't end up cutting your weft, though. That's always a possibility. And I'm going to wait on these because I may decide to weave in the warp ends. And if you have a tail here, you can kind of hold it while you pull yarn in the opposite direction. Whereas if these are all just cut off, I could end up pulling these back through as well, which I don't really want to do. Okay, so now you can kind of see a little bit more of the pattern so far. I'm going to repeat this pattern on the other side now, and I have one row of the blue that goes all the way across, and then I'll have to count. I think I have 4 rows. Let's see, 2, 4, yeah, 4 rows that create those slits on the side, and then I'll make this little. It turned out looking a little bit more like a curve than a triangle. When you're starting a new pattern, it's always a good idea to just double check your weaving pattern, because sometimes one section might end, going under, over, under, and then it doesn't actually line up with this weaving pattern. So you just want to continue your rows until you have the correct alternating pattern in all areas so that you can create a consistent look. And when you're doing a row, when you've counted a row and you're doing that, you want to go all the way across and all the way back, and that's one row. Because otherwise, the yarn on the opposite side doesn't follow the same pattern. So when you go all the way across and all the way back, that creates the same weaving pattern on both the front and the back. Okay, so now I'm going to do 4 rows, or 8 times across, once, 2 this way. So 4 this way and 4 that way, alternating. And I'm not going to adhere them to these stitches, so I can make those slits. Okay, so this is one row finishing up here. Whoop. Okay, well this is probably good. If you make a mistake, which I needed to go to this warp thread and I only went to this one, you can unweave by taking your needle and going like that. It's a lot easier than trying to unweave it by hand. Okay, so over, and then I need to go under this one. Okay, so this is finishing up row 1 of the 4 that create that slit on either side. So that's one. On the second one, Finishing up the second. Notice I'm not pulling this overly tight. Okay, starting on the third one. I might run out of yarn and I might have to add some more. Finishing up the third. And the fourth row is going to have to have another Okay, on this side I have already added the rows of weaving that that form the side of the triangle, and I'm going to show you how to do it on this side. Go ahead and thread your new weft through, let's see, and we want 4 stitches. To make the little slit, we have 4 stitches on this side, and so we need 4 stitches on that side. And then try to notice the pattern of the weaving on this side, and the first one goes under, so I'm going to go over, and then this one goes under, over, under, over, like so. And there are 14 of these warp threads, and so to make the bottom row I'm going to go all the way over to the 7 and then weave back over. I did the same thing on that side, and you'll notice that there's a little space in here because this side did 7 stitches, and on this side there are 7. And this little space will be filled with the silvery yarn when we actually make the triangular shape. Thread back there. Follow the pattern, the alternating, and I went to 7, the 7th warp thread on the row beneath this, and now I'm only going to do 6. Okay, and that will create the gradation. Okay, that is going under, so I'm going to go over. Under. It's hard to remember not to just keep going all the way across. I only want to go to the 5th. And I don't want to pull it real tight. It needs to be snug but not tight. The last stitch went under, so I'm going to go over. Okay, the last stitch went to 5, so I'm only going to go to 4 on this one. hopefully I won't run out of yarn. You don't want to add more weft when I have such a little tiny bit left to do. When you have such a short little tail, sometimes you have to unthread the needle, put it through where you're going to secure the weft, and then rethread it. Ugh, why can't I get that through there? There we go. Okay, that got a little bit too tight, so I'm going to loosen that. Okay, so now both sides have the gradient moving up, and now we can put the silver part in. Okay, I'm going to thread my new weft right up next to that little space. Leave a little bit of a tail. Okay. You don't want your weft to create knots, so if this row you've just finished and your yarn is coming up underneath it, you just want to unknot it so that your next row of weft will be on top. I don't know if that makes sense, but otherwise you'll have like a twist that will be pretty obvious. Okay, now I don't want to just pull my weft through here. I need to go all the way back because I started on this side and came this way. So in order to complete this row, I need to come up. Okay, so this is my last row. I'm going to come down through here. Okay, so that is the top triangle. Okay, and I went ahead and trimmed the weft tails from here because I'm not going to weave the ends back in this particular design. I'll show you how to do that on the other design that I made. Now to mimic this pattern, I've actually woven two tall on either side. So I'm just going to unweave these and make it flat, make the weaving pattern consistent on both sides, and then I'm going to start working back and forth to mimic this so that I have a symmetrical design.